Hey, what's up, LinkedIn? Kevin here from Festo. Last week I did a post on Codesys, and I just did a quick, brief description of the benefits of it, including PLC open function blocks, OPC UA connectivity, and object-based programming, and the fact that it's free. But another feature that I wanted to highlight is you can run Codesys on your PC without any hardware. So you can actually log into a virtual PLC and run virtual hardware from within your computer without actually physically having anything connected or set up on your desk. So it's a really nice way of just getting your wheels with PLC programming and also proving out concepts without putting any upfront capital to get things going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you using Codesys version 3.5 Service Pack 16 patch 4 provided by Festo. I'm going to show you how to get started and just some real basic, simple programming, like adding POUs, variables, and simple debugging methods. Now, at the moment, I don't have any internet. My provider is having a nationwide blackout, so there's no internet connection for me at all right now. So what I'll do is when I actually post this, down in the comments, I'm going to put a link for where you can download this exact version of Codesys. Again, it's free. You don't need to pay anything. Download it, and then you'll be able to do everything that I'm doing here. You'll also have the documentation included with that link as well. So to get started, first thing we want to do is go to the Codesys installation directory. So that's on your C drive, or will be on your C drive. I have it in my APPL folder. Depends on where you put it, but you'll be able to find it. So Codesys, documentation, English, and here we go. So you got two quick start guides that are included in the installation. The first one is for visualizations. I might do a video later on if that's something people would be interested in. If you're interested in it, comment down below and let me know. If you want something else, also let me know. But for now, we're going to use the Codesys installation and start document. So here we go. So this is a 14-page PDF that goes over installation, getting started, and also modifying, removing, or repairing installations as well. So again, today I'm just going to use the creating and running a project, and then just go through the writing a simple control program. Again, it's going to be nothing fancy, real low level, basic, keep it simple, get started kind of stuff. And then maybe later on I'll post some videos and we'll get into some more of the advanced functions. So first thing we need to do is create a project. So let me get this out of the way. And this, and keep my notes open on the next screen. And here we go. So file, new project. For this one, we're just going to use standard project. And I always like to right away find the directory that I want to store my projects in. And where I like to keep mine is actually in the Codesys folder. So mine is here, Codesys, and projects. There you are. My projects. Perfect. So that's where it's going to store my project files. Now I'm going to give my project a name. The naming that I like to use, like the naming convention, is I'll give my project a description. So this is my first project, and then underscore. And then I put in my version, like my Codesys version. So this is version 3.5. Dot 16 and patch 4. I like to put this in there because a couple of reasons. One, for myself, so if I got to open this project again later on, like a couple of years down the road, it gives me a good starting point of knowing what I used. So depending on where I'm at that time, it'll give me clues on how I can open this project and get it to compile without any issues. So it can save me a lot of time there. The other thing is it can tell whoever I'm sharing my project with what I used. So there's lots of different versions of Codesys, and different platforms are at different points. Like I think 3S themselves, they're at version 18 or 19. Like they're quite a bit ahead. So it's just a good way of letting everybody know what it is that you're using. And then finally, I like to include the date 20. So this is 2022, July 8th. And then I put letter at the end. So I start with the letter A, and then each time I make a revision to my project, I'll increment that letter up. So right now I'm on revision A, meaning it's brand new initial. If I go and make a change like add a library, change a function block name, something like that, I'll change that revision to B and save it as a new version. So what you'll see in my project folder is I'll have all of these projects where the dates will increment for each day that I'm working on this project, and those letters will increment throughout the days. So that way it's just a way of me keeping track of all of my different versions. So I'll save it. All right, and now for this project, according to the documentation, what we want to use is the Codesys control when version 3. So that's actually what we call the soft PLC that's installed with Codesys. So let's go Codesys soft motion control v3. So you want to pick this one. These are all the different languages that you can use. Again, they're all included. You don't pay for these. These are just basic features that come with Codesys. So for this one, we're going to use structured text. You could use ladder if you preferred, but I really like structured text for this kind of stuff. So we'll hit OK, start. Cool. So now we've got like our foundation built. This is like the basic project. Up here is the PLC. So this is our PLC. Again, it's the virtual PLC that we're going to run on our computer. PLC logic. This is like the project tree. And then application. So this is the like our code. So library managers, where we're going to find function blocks and libraries. We're not going to use any of those today. PLC PRG, this is the initial project that's created. It's kind of like in Rockwell when you first create a project and your initial project is like main project. That's what this is, so we can start coding right away in here. And then the task configuration, so that's going to be like where these POUs that we add will be scanned, and we can do all kinds of fancy things on determining how and when these are scanned. But for this one, we're not going to touch any of that. We're going to leave the default parameters for all of that. So once we get to this point, the first thing we need to do is come over to our, oh, am I in the way? Yeah, let's get me up there. There. So down here, this is the Codesys controller. This is that soft PLC. So first thing we need to do is right click it and start it. When we start it, you'll see the Codesys gateway is going to become available and it's going to be running. If we stop it, we know it's stopped because it turns gray. So turn that back on. So there you go. Those two steps right there, that's you now have a live PLC running in your inside of your computer. So now we need to connect our project to said PLC inside of our computer. So come over to devices, or sorry, device, double click, and now we have our communication settings. When you have this little gray dot here, it means you don't have an active connection yet. So it's not linked to any hardware or any PLCs. So first thing we need to do is make that connection. So we can come over here to scan network. And now it's going to scan your gateway. And there's our soft PLC. So hit OK. And now we're green. So that means I have a connection. We are linked to PLC. So what I'll do next is just to make sure everything's working, hit this little box here to compile the project. Nothing really to compile because it's an empty project, but just force a habit. Next, hit this little gear icon, and that's going to log into the PLC. This is just saying there's no project on your PLC. Do you want to download one? Yes, we do. And there you go. This little green icon here next to main task, that means we're live. We are running. Logouts to go offline. Square. Put the PLC in stop mode, so it's going to quit updating the I/O. And the little sideways triangle play button puts us back into run mode. So there you go. You got a basic project online, ready to go. So now let's lay down some code. All right, so let's see what this document wants us to do. So we've done this. This here is talking about how you can rename the PLC. So by default, it's called device, but you could give it any name you want. And down here, so this is where we're at. So now we can actually declare some variables and write some code. So what we have in the POU, so this is like our program that was initialized when we first created the project, is on this top window here. This is where your variable declarations are. So your variables that we're going to use in the code, it's going to be declared up here. And then down here is where we actually write some code. So looking at the quick start guide, it's going to ask us to create some variables, which I'll do. So the first variable is I var, and it is an int. Whoops, got excited. There. So what did we just do? We just created a variable named I var, added a colon, and then the data type is integer. You'll notice in a lot of Codesys projects, by the naming convention is to put the abbreviation for the different variables in front of it. The reason why we do this is it makes it easier to read the code and to know what kind of data to expect out of that variable. At first, it makes it a little tricky to read the variable names, but after you do it for a little while, you just kind of, you get used to it. You just kind of learn to ignore that first letter. So in this case, it's an int var. So what else do we need? We need a variable named fb, fb for function block, inst, instance, and it is of type fb1. At first, this is going to be defaulted. It's because we haven't actually created this function block yet. We're going to do that later on. So for now, just ignore that red line there. Next variable, erg, int. I'm not sure why this time they didn't put the I in front of erg, but let's just go with it. Okay, so that's our variables. Next, we'll add some code. First line of code is ivar equals ivar plus 1. So each time this line here scans, ivar is going to add 1 and then put it back into itself. So you're going to see it basically constantly incrementing up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way to whatever. So, and then the next line is fb inst input equals 11 out. Whoops. Erg. So we'll put the output into erg as the result. There we go. So with function blocks, this is kind of neat. Equals is used for input. So I'm going to take the number 11 and insert it into the input in. So the function block is going to receive that number, and then it's going to do something with it. And then on this output variable, you'll see the equals with the right facing triangle. It's going to take whatever the result is and send it out of the out variable to the variable that it's intended to receive it. So in this case, ERG. What else have we got here? We can put in some comments. So we got, this is a counter because it's going to just count up by 1. Next, this is a call function block of type FB1 with input parameter in and output is written to ERG. Okay, and again, I'm just taking what's in this document and just following along. So another way we can declare the variable is there's actually a variable auto declare. So what you can do is you can come down into your code and you can create a variable myvar equals my var plus 1. There. So now if I click on this little light bulb, I'm given the option to declare the variable. And then here I can give it a name, so I'm calling it myvar. Data type, we'll make it an integer. Initialization would be like an initial value, like I could say on startup, give it a value of 1. Address, this would be if I wanted to link it to physical IO, which in this case I don't have any. And then comments, this is my variable for fun. And then also like the scope, like I can make it an input, output, global, all kinds of different things. Just more settings, so hit OK. And then that just gets added. So I don't need this, let's blow that out away. Okay, cool. So now we have some code. I think next we're going to deal with this error. Let's take a look. Perfect. So now we're going to create an additional POU. That's a structured text function block called FB1. Because right now, this instance right here of FB1, it doesn't exist. This isn't a function block anywhere. So we'll go to Application, right-click, Add Object, and POU. So my function block is going to be called FB1 of type function block. And language is structured text. Again, you can use any of the languages you want. Like if I was creating a function block and I was putting in motion control function blocks like MC power, MC move, things like that, I might make this actually a function block diagram, so then you actually like visually see the function blocks with the inputs on one side, outputs on the other side. But for this, let's just again keep it simple, don't get too crazy, just call it structured text. Okay, and next we need to add our inputs to our function block, our outputs to our function blocks, and any local variables that are used only within the function block itself. So my input is in of type int. My output is out of type int. And my local variable is ivar int, And this one, I want to give it an initial value. So I want to assign it a value right away. And I'm going to give it a value of 2. So ivar data type int, and it is equal to 2. And the code is out equals in plus ivar. Good. All right, so now they're going back to actually what I showed you in the beginning, where we can come over into the communication settings, scan, find our device, and actually go online. A rule that I follow when I'm programming is I always do a save before I log in. It's just to force a habit. Seems like if the software is going to crash or if anything's going to go wrong, it's usually then is when those things can happen. So it's a good habit to have. So first thing I'll do is go File, Save Project As. Codesys. 16 patch 4 2022 0708 save, and let's log in. So I already have an application on my project, and what it's saying here is, do I want to update my boot application? That's not so important here because this is not a project that's going to be running live on a machine. But if this is something you want to keep forever on the PLC that you're using, you want to update boot application, because what that's going to do is it's going to take your project data and push it into the permanent memory of the PLC. So that way, when you cycle power to the PLC, when you come back online, you'll still have the latest project. If you don't do that, if you miss this checkbox and you cycle power to your PLC, what's going to happen is the next time you go online, the project that's going to boot up will be the project that was stored the last time that box was checked. So that's really important. This is a common thing. Okay. Where that can be useful is if you're experimenting and you don't really know, like you think this should work, but I don't know if I want to keep this or not. You can leave it unchecked, run it, verify that you're happy with the changes that you made and you do want to permanently store them. You could always do it later, right? So you can come under online and then just select create boot application, and then it'll just do a quick little blurb, and then that data is stored. All right, cool. So now that we are online and we're in run mode, you're going to see the code's actually running. So you see these values incrementing. See it over here better. So that's that counter. As it cycles through, it's constantly adding, and then down in the function block, it's doing some adding as well, and we're getting the result of 13. So now we got a basic project running, which is pretty cool. And let's see, so it's getting online. All right, so the next thing we can do is we can actually add a watch window. So that's a nice way of being able to view statuses of your variables while the project's running. So how we do that is we go over to projects, tools, let's see. Edit objects. No. I know I already have my watch window open here, but I just want to show you where you can see it, like how you can get it to open if it's not there already. Right, so this is showing you the live data. And here you go, using your watch list. So go to the view menu and then click the watch window that you want to open. So view and watch. So by default we have 4 different watch windows plus the force tab. So we'll just open watch 1. It's already down here. And then what we can do is we can add variables from a project to this watch window. So we click this little button down here. So the input assistant, so now we can go and find our variables. So under our device, which is our PLC, application, which is our project, and PLC PRG is our POU. Here's our variable. So I'll add ERG. I'll add the function block. Now this is when I select the function block, it's going to bring in all of the inputs and the internal variables and everything that are within that function block. They're going to be pulled into the watch window. If I just want one of those, like let's say I only want to see the output, I can select that by just expanding the function block and digging in a little bit deeper. But for this, I'm going to use the whole function block. And one more. IVAR. Cool. Alright, so let's pull these guys over so we can see a little bit better. So now down here in this watch window, we can see the statuses of the variables in our POU. And the nice thing about having this is you can always see it no matter where in the project you are. So let's say we have a big project with lots of code, lots of libraries, lots of POUs, and we're way deep somewhere else in the project, and I want to see these different variables from all of these different parts of the project at the same time. This gives us a nice window where you can see those. Also, if you're scrolling through your project and you're doing different things and you want to be able to force values, you can do all of that from down here, right? Without actually having to be where that variable is declared in your screen. So let's open up our POU again. Okay. So now if we want to force values, what I can do is I can come in here and let's say this input value, I want to change that. I want to make that a different number. Or let's do this one, IVAR. Say I want to change that value. I want to force it. So I go under prepared value and let's enter a number, say 10. So now it's like preloaded, ready to go. Go under online, debug. So you can do write value, which is like a toggle, like it just kind of pushes the value in one time. And then we could also do force values, which shoves it in there, and then it's forcing it to be that number as long as the force is active. So I'll show you what both look like. So right now, our variables value is 18,500 and something and counting. So if I do write values, see it dropped back down to 10 and now it's counting from 10 and we're counting back up. But 10 was just momentary and now it's continuing on looping through the program, having new values assigned to it. Let's do 10 again. Go back to debug. And now if I force, you get this little red icon with the F, meaning force. And now that 10 value is being forced into the variable and the program's no longer overwriting what that value is. So the program's scanning, it's going through its loop, but when it gets to this line and it's trying to assign a number to that variable, it can't. It's being overwritten by the force. So to get rid of that, go back to debug and then choose unforce. Most programmers, what they do is they'll use the short keys. So write values is Control F7, force values F7, unforce Alt F7. So the one I use most of the time is just the write values. If I just want to quickly, momentarily change a value, like say I want to hit like a trigger bit or something, I'll use Control F7. And next, debugging. So adding breakpoints. So what we can do here is we can actually halt the PLC scan. So the way the PLC scanning is left to right, top to bottom. What we can do is, as it's scanning, we can halt it on certain lines and see what value is being assigned. This is really important for when you're testing your projects, to be able to make sure that everything's working the way that you think it's supposed to work. Because sometimes PLCs, they think a little bit different than the way humans think. So in the document here that we're referencing, what we're going to do is we're going to put a breakpoint on line 1. So we're going to halt our counter, and then we're going to step through our program and see what's happening to the values as we step through. So first thing I'll do is just click line 1. So my cursor is now on line 1. You see the line becomes yellow. And go back to debug. And okay, this is actually a little confusing. I noticed in the document, the wording's a little bit different than what's in the code. So I'll show you that here. So in PLC PRG, set the cursor in line 1. In the debug menu, press F9 to execute the switch breakpoint command. So let's do that. So our cursor's on line 1. We know that it's there because we see the cursor, and also we see line 1 is now highlighted and it's yellow. We go up to debug and we look for the phrasing switch breakpoint. It's not in here. But I see the shortcut key F9, so I think what they actually mean to say is toggle breakpoint. There. Actually, that's not the one that I want. Let's toggle it off. Whoops. Oh, I'm making a mess of this. Let's start over. Let's go F9. I think if I go play, it's gone. Okay. There. Debug. There. That's where I want it. So now that the breakpoint is active, the project's been halted on line number 1. So you'll notice how we're no longer in run mode. We're actually halted, and you can see that down here. So now if I want to continue to step, if we look at the documentation, we can press 8 to step the command through each line of the code, so we can kind of follow things one step at a time and actually see what's happening. So what that looks like is, so I'm going to hit F8. Whoops. Still in the PDF. There, now I'm in my project, so F8. Now we're on line 2. So now we are outside of the function block. Now I hit F8 again. And now we are inside of the function block. So now this piece of code is going to run. Now hit F8 again. We're finished executing the function block, and now we're ready to return back to our main program. Or sorry, from the program that we left from, the one we originated in. And execute the result of that function block, and now we're back to the return, which is going to take us to the top of the code. So one more time, what this is doing, this is going through the sequence of the PLC code. This is really important to understand how this sequence works, because this is going to be the data flow. The best way I can compare this is kind of like when you're first learning arithmetic in grade school and they teach you BEDMAS, and this is the sequence of operation for completing like a math function. Um, this is what you're looking at here is a sequence of operation of the PLC on how it's executing each line of code. That's why it's really important not to repeat outputs and put them in different, yeah, like repeat outputs and have them in different lines of code and things like that, because you get all kinds of weird stuff happening from this sequencing, right? Now, another cool function is with the function block. Let's say you don't want to actually step inside of the function block. Like maybe you have a really big function block and you don't want to step inside of it and then have to sequence through each line of that function block. Maybe you just want to skip that. So what you can do is F8. So now we're at the function block, but now we want to jump over the function block. Simply just press F10. So now we skip all that code inside of the function block, go to the next line, and then back to our sequence. That's one of those things where a project like this, not such a big deal, because inside of the function block is one line of code, so it's almost, for demonstrating, it's worth it to be able to go inside of the function block and see the sequencing. But again, if you had a project where you had a relatively large function block with a lot of code in it, and you don't want to look at it for the purposes of debugging, then F10 will allow you to skip over it. So all right, so now we've done the debugging, we're happy, everything looks good. Now we want to get rid of this. So what we can do is deactivate. So I just did function F9, and I deactivated my debug line, or my breakpoint. You could also come back here and just select toggle, and then I'll throw PLC back into run mode. And now it's just going to continue to do that scanning automatically, and you can see how fast it's doing it. Quite quick. And all right, cool. And that's it. So that's that's getting started with your first project. If you have any questions, you need any help, any comments, things you liked about this video, things you didn't like about this video, let me know in the comments below, or send me a DM, whatever works best for you. And again, and also, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something from it.